Through their lens, photographers tell stories that might otherwise go unseen. Exhibiting for photography also raises a crucial question: what role does art play in times of uncertainty? And can it influence public perception? You're listening to the Explain Ukraine podcast. Explain Ukraine is a podcast by UkraineWorld, a multilingual media outlet about Ukraine. My name is Volodymyr Yermolenko. I'm a Ukrainian philosopher, journalist and chief editor of UkraineWorld. This talk is hosted by Daria Synhaievska, an analyst and journalist at UkraineWorld. Her guest is Jérôme Barbosa, a photographer who has ventured into Ukraine during wartime, capturing moments of resilience, humanity, and raw emotion. UkraineWorld is brought to you by Internews Ukraine, one of the largest Ukrainian media NGOs. Let me remind you that you can support our work at patreon.com/UkraineWorld. We really need your support now, as our media is increasingly reliant on crowdfunding. You can also support our volunteer trips to the frontline areas, where we help both soldiers and civilians, bringing mostly cars for soldiers and books for civilians. You can support our trips via PayPal, ukraine.resisting@gmail.com. So let's begin.
Hi Jérôme, great to have you with us today.
Thank you very much.
As I know, you've been to Ukraine for several times, and as far as I know, you recently returned from another trip from Ukraine. Can you share your impressions? Maybe we can start by diving into your recent experience in Ukraine, and what were your impressions of Ukraine, its people, and the current atmosphere during your trip?
It's a vast question. So I just returned from my 8th journey in Ukraine. To have, it's impossible for me to give impression about the whole country, because the country is huge, and have been to only several cities. I've been to Chernihiv, Kharkiv, and Izium. And for very different reasons. And also, the people I met are mostly in Chernihiv and Kharkiv. They are volunteers. And in Izium, it was mostly militaries, soldiers. And they are all very involved and committed in the resistance. So it felt good to see some of them again, because I knew many of them, and to encounter new people, and to see the level of commitment in the situation that Ukraine is facing right now.
And I also know that you run several art projects, some of which cover topic of war in Ukraine, of Russia's full-scale invasion. Can you please dwell on this a little bit more?
Since the first day of the full-scale invasion of Ukraine, I was in Paris. I was very worried about what I heard on the radio about the Russian maneuvers around the Ukrainian borders. And I knew something fishy was going to happen. And so the first day I went outside, I encountered a lot of Ukrainian people living in Paris and demonstrating against this aggression, this invasion. And since then, I followed every demonstration in Paris. But after a while, when the world heard about Bucha, Irpin, Hostomel mass graves, and the bombing of the maternity of Mariupol, I knew that it was impossible to stay in France anymore, because I could see that demonstration were they were turning into something usual. It was an habit, and it's terrible to witness that. And I thought maybe I could be more useful if I go to Ukraine. So in April 2022, I went with a group of Syrian people bringing Georgian medication to a Polish hub close to the border, thanks to Yuri Bilak, who is a French photographer but with Ukrainian roots. I managed to pass the border, and then I managed to find my way, thanks to a lot of people in Ukraine, to Zaporizhia, and this is how everything started. Since then, I created many contacts in Ukraine, and the more the time pass, the more people see my commitment, and also I turn into a international volunteer and also messenger. It means that I am translating not the language, but the way of thinking of Ukrainian for French people, and vice versa. Because even if we have good technology to communicate, we have different way of thinkings, we have different way of livings, we have different way of think things, and it's important to have someone who can have one foot in France and one foot in Ukraine, just to pass the messages. And this is also what I'm doing with photography. I'm trying to cover all the aspects of the consequences of the war in Ukraine for the civil population and now for the soldiers. And this is what I'm trying to do. I'm bringing pictures from Ukraine to France, and not trying to. I'm not trying to publicate them in press, because unfortunately right now in France it's very difficult to find newspapers and magazines to display this kind of photography. And I try more to find places where to exhibit the pictures, because this way people are facing the picture. They are alone in front of the pictures, so they have their own conscience to refer to in this kind of situation. And until now, the results are very promising. And right now, I am preparing something like 5 different exhibitions in France and Italy, and I hope that it will it will change the way of certain people, their conception of war, about the situation of Ukraine, and it will bring more help for the local association and to associations in Ukraine.
Yes, and that's what solidarity also means. But I found really fascinating your stance on translating what happens in Ukraine to a broader audience, because capturing life in wartime must be, to some extent, a transformative experience. And our like social media news, and you partly covered this part, are full of this. Images, ranging from photos of civilians taken after the occupation of Bucha to videos of tortures and executions of Ukrainian prisoners of war. Well, surely those videos were created by the enemy, but at the same time, they are circulating through different social medias. So this brings me to the question: if so, has working in wartime conditions changed your perception of the photographer's, I would not say profession, but rather your perception of photography?
I still have faith in photography, because without what I've seen in the work of other photographers, I wouldn't have gone to Ukraine. It's because I believe in photography. I believe in its power to be a document, to be a way of communicating to people who are not able to be in the spot. And it's a huge responsibility. The more I go to Ukraine, the more I feel that every time you're over there, you cannot fail. Even if you're tired, if you're hungry, if you're even if your nerves are shot, you have to be really conscious and aware of what you're doing, because you don't have a second chance. When you're in a specific place, you have to give the best of your ability to feel a situation, to respect people that you're photographing, because it's very important. And so for me, it's very important, because, as I told you before, it's a chain of solidarity. Without all these people before me, I wouldn't have been able to be to certain places. So when I finally go to certain places, I have to be really precise, really respectful, really aware of the situation people are going through. And it's also for respect for the viewers later that who will see these pictures. It's very important. And fortunately, I see a lot of photography about Ukraine that are not, how to say that, relevant. They are irrelevant, and sometimes you can feel there is a lack of respect for people, and it makes me angry, because you you cannot play lightly in such situation. It's a very serious situation. So when I met some people. They are photographers. They want to go to Ukraine, and every time I told them, "What is your first motivation?" And most of the time, it's for themselves. And I said to them, "Okay, go to Ukraine, come back, and if your motivation didn't change, it's better for you to stop." Because if you come back from Ukraine and you say, "Oh, this is only about me," you are on the wrong path. When you come back from Ukraine, it's about people. And I mean Ukraine. It could be another country with this kind of dramatic situation. You have to be aware that when you come back, it's only about people, about respect, about dignity, and this is the most important. And you have to be really, really cautious about what you are doing, not to put yourself in dangerous situation, but also what you're showing, not to put anyone in danger. This is the most important, because now we know that our work is under scrutiny of a lot of people, and sometimes people with bad intentions.
And speaking of this tone of voice that you mentioned, if you know the one of the greatest work of Susan Sontag on photography, where she dwells on that suffering can no longer be reduced to an aesthetic object in photographer's portfolio, but it's also about, to some extent, iconographic tradition of depicting life in nowadays, when the attributes of suffering become a distinguishing mark and something that reveals the essence. And basically, that goes in line with what you said about dignity, about those values that also are like transmitted through photography as an instrument. And as I may notice, you prefer black and white photography, and to my mind it's also an important stance. Why is it so, and why do you lean towards such type of photography? Is it does it help to, tell the story, or does it transmit complex emotional context of war, or why is that?
Two quotation, one from Tom Stoddart, English photographer who passed away a few years ago. And once he was making a conference about his work, and he answered the questions, and I felt really relieved when I hear his what he said about black and white photography. He said that since I was born, I saw things in color. Why should I reproduce them in color? And the other quotation is about Elliot Erwitt, if I'm not wrong. Color is illustrative, black and white is descriptive. And there is not only the black and white, but also, if you've seen my pictures, I'm not looking for very graphic situation. I'm not looking for tragedy. I'm more focused about solidarity, about people doing things. And lastly, I found myself, I decided to go there, but I found myself in a unit stabilization a few kilometers away from the front line. The place was receiving wounded soldiers, and if you make a color photography, a lot of photographers are attracted by the blood, because it's red, because it's graphic, and I don't care about the blood. It doesn't mean that I don't care about the wounds, but for me the most important is the link between people. The view of huge wound is not bringing anything to the audience. But if you show people taking care of other people, taking care of a wound, trying to help to save someone, to save his life or her life, and and for me it's much more important, because when I crossed the Ukrainian border for the first time, I thought to myself, if I bring exactly the same picture of everybody else, what is the meaning of all of this? I'm going to be a burden on the shoulder of people, and they don't need that. But if I bring something else, if I'm more sensitive about the relationship between people in the places where I'm going to go, maybe I will bring this to friends, and to show that people are striving, they are fighting to keep their humor, to keep their children in schools, to keep culture alive, to save books. And for me, it's the most important, just to show blood, tears, and destruction is, yes, it's a part of war. It's we cannot deny about it. But to show only this, the message is very simple to the audience ear. It's chaos. You cannot do anything. So what's the point of this picture, of these pictures? But when you show signs of solidarity, of resistance, the message is, because pictures are holding messages, and the message is you can be part of that. You can help these people to go on living, to keep on fighting and resisting. And this is what for me is very important about black and white, is because for me color is very distracting. It doesn't mean that I'm not using color for my work in Ukraine. I only use color when the color is meaningful, but most of the time is meaningless. I've seen so many pictures in color about the situation in Ukraine, and I said, okay, what is the meaning of this picture? It's okay, nice color, and yeah, but what it is all about. And through black and white, I can really focus on the faces, on the stares of the people, on their gesture, on the interactions. And this is always that what attracted me in black and white photography. Most of all my models, my mentors in in photography were working in black and white.
And continuing this topic of dedication, either through methods, through instruments, through black and white photography, and to your vision of what is going on, your experience of living through such wartime conditions. I want to harken us back to the topic of translating events and which stories captured in your work in Ukraine do you consider the most important for global audience? Which ones do you feel resonate mostly with global audience, if there are such?
I don't know. I don't know about global audience. For me, it's I'm just one person. I'm just a human being. I have my way of perceiving the world around me. But for me, all the stories are important. First of all, but one that really affected me because suddenly I was in front of history with a capital H. Is when I found myself in Kivsharivka. This day we were supposed to go to Kupiansk. The day passed and nothing was really happening. I didn't know exactly what was it was supposed to happen. Nobody told me anything, and I was just waiting, and suddenly the car. It's a long story, so I'm trying to make it short. The car I was in with Olena, this friend of mine who is from Kharkiv and was highly helpful. Without her, a lot of the pictures wouldn't exist today. And with Helena, we followed the people we were with to Kivsharivka, and we were 10 kilometers away from the front line, and we were in front of a gate, and the sun was setting, and I was thinking, oh, it's going to be really hard to do anything today. And the gate opened, and someone came, a soldier, came and said, no pictures. And I said, oh, it's going to be fun. No light, no pictures. How do you want to do anything in these conditions? And so we went to a small garage, and someone opened the doors, and suddenly I faced this huge heap of books. I didn't know first what it was, but I realized it was books, and it was school books. And it was like something like 1 ton or 1 ton and a half of Ukrainian school books. And so we started to make a chain to load a Kamaz truck, and I was thinking we are rescuing knowledge in Ukrainian language, and it was, for me, it was overwhelming. Uh, it was huge. It was huge, and I started to talk to myself in a loud voice, not loud, but for myself. But I was speaking in French to myself. Nobody could understand around, but it was for me more. It was easier to apprehend the situation, and I turned while I was carrying the books like everybody around. And I turned to Olena and I asked her, can you translate these two questions to the soldiers around us? The first question is, uh, everybody loved school when you were young, and they start laughing because they were rescuing school books, but some of them really didn't like school at the time when they were in schools. And the second question was, can you imagine what the pupils will think about their school books one day when the war will be over, and they will carry these books in their school bags, and do you think they will know about this situation, what is happening now? And a huge silence around us, because they suddenly realized that, yes, what they were doing was part of the history of their country. And after we moved the books to another place, to a house of culture, to protect them. Suddenly, one of the I don't know, I don't know what's the grade of this military, but he said, "Okay, you can do pictures now." And so we were with some other journalists. They start shooting like mad for 30 seconds. They went away, and then I was alone with Olena and the people who were with us, because they were volunteers. And this time we were only 7 people to unload the truck. And I could see the sweat on the foreheads, and the exhaustions of people. And I thought, this is now, the picture is now, because you can see the effort of people, the to save culture, to save lives, to save anything. You need strength, you need determination, you need solidarity. And I knew this was the picture, and this was one of the pictures that really moved people here in France, because in France we're very attached to books. And when the teachers saw this picture, they almost got tears in their eye, because they understand the the importance of what was happening at the time.
Yes, and this story indeed speaks volume, and your idea of determination that is of a great need. I completely share it, because basically each choice is a hard choice. It's hard to battle with military capabilities that are twofold, threefold times greater than the capabilities military is for now of Ukraine. But it is also hard to lost sovereignty, to lost subjectivity. So every choice is a hard choice, but at the same time, um, it is important to preserve this light, to fight for values that define us in broader sense. And maybe if we can uncover the curtail a little bit, what are your plans for the future, and does Ukraine feature in them?
80% of my life is dedicated to the situation in Ukraine. The future is about mostly trying to. I think this is the most important. Trying to connect people. And yes, definitely Ukraine is part of my future, because this war has to cease in the best condition for Ukrainian people. European people have to understand that Ukraine is very important, not only for Ukrainians, but for themselves. And right now it's a huge task to accomplish here, to meet people. That's why I'm very glad that the National Archives of Italy are going to receive my picture in few weeks. I will be able to present it to a foreign audience. It will also, maybe, I hope, I'm crossing my fingers, maybe I will be able to present this body of work, this body of photography in Lithuania. And for me, it's very important to meet people, not to meet an audience, because an audience is a mass of people, indistinct people, but to meet one person after another, because it's the relationship between people that can move mountains. And right now I'm in touch with military units in in Ukraine, and also in touch with an association here They are providing power generators, and I'm trying to make the link between them. And it's not only about photography, it's not only about me, but suddenly you're a chain of solidarity. So if by passing an information, by passing a testimony, you can save lives. So your life start to be meaningful. But if you're just a witness doing nothing to improve the situation, so what is the point to be a witness? If you are a witness, there is no objective point of view. There is only subjective, and you have to act the best you think is for the people you meet, because maybe somewhere out of your sight, the lives of someone is going to be changed for the better, and this is what is important, I think.
Thank you for your time and for such a glimpse into important work of yours that you do. And definitely, I want to thank you for staying strong with Ukraine.
Thanks to Ukrainian people.
This was a podcast explaining Ukraine by UkraineWorld, a multilingual media about Ukraine. My name is Volodymyr Yermolenko. I'm a Ukrainian philosopher, journalist, and chief editor of UkraineWorld. This talk was hosted by Daria Synhaievska, an analyst and journalist at UkraineWorld. Her guest was Jérôme Barbosa, a photographer who has ventured into Ukraine during wartime, capturing moments of resilience, humanity, and raw emotion. UkraineWorld is brought to you by Internews Ukraine, one of the largest Ukrainian media NGOs. You can support our work at patreon.com/UkraineWorld. We really need your support now, as our media is increasingly reliant on crowdfunding. You can also support our volunteer trips to the frontline areas, where we help both soldiers and civilians, bringing mostly cars for soldiers and books for civilians. You can support our trips via PayPal, Ukraine.resisting, gmail.com. You can find these links in the description of this episode. Stay with us and stand with Ukraine.